Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Snowflake High School football coach Kay Solomon. He'll talk about the team's move from 3A to 4A, how the quarterback position will shake out, and previews their first game against Northwest Christian. We'll then be joined by Mayer High School football coach Thomas Oppelt. He'll break down the differences between 8-man and 11-man football, how things are down at JV, and he'll discuss coaching as an administrator. And when we return from break, we'll be joined by Mingus Union High School swim coach Gretchen Wesbrock. She'll sit down to preview the upcoming season, how her club program prepares swimmers for the next level, and who she'll get back this season. All of that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Mingus Union High School swim coach. She is Gretchen Wesbrock. Gretchen, welcome back to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are always happy to have you, as of course, we got a chance to speak with Coach Bill Revere previewing the Prescott swim season. So now we're continuing to preview the fall sports. As we all know, swim season is just right around the corner, as Coach Wesbrock is politely nodding, and it is very, very close to the start of the season, Coach. So I just want to ask, how's the off season going so far?
It's been incredible. We are finishing up our last week, coming up this coming week. Have had a group of about 45 teenagers getting up every morning with our summer recreation program with the Cottonwood Clippers. And it's pretty amazing to see teenagers at a pool at 5:45 in the morning with semi smiles on their face. So it's been a great season, a lot of great training, a lot of great potential happening. So we're excited to see what that's going to look like and translate into the high school season.
Well, that's good, Coach, that you're able to get those kids out there so early in the morning. I remember having those early start times for basketball practice during the weekends, and never fun to walk into the gymnasium at 6 a.m. and have to start working. But of course, it's all about the preparation for the season. Mingus Union, one of the better swim programs in Northern Arizona. Like Coach said, she also runs the Cottonwood Clippers, which is a club team that in a way does feed into the Mingus Union program. Maybe not exactly directly. I'm sure you have a couple kids who go to other schools, but regardless, Coach, how are we feeling about the returners this season? Again, it seems like you guys are bringing back some talent.
Absolutely. Especially we've got a smaller girls team this year as far as upperclassmen and returners. We have quite a good group of freshmen coming in, but our boys team is big and solid. We just had a summer meet last Saturday. We've got another meet coming up this Saturday, and we've got a group of boys, probably about 10 that are all really vying for different spots, especially on relays. So it's been exciting because they're pushing each other as they train and providing that competition within the team, which I think is so powerful because that will only assist them as they go and compete outside of our team. So we've got a lot of really great stuff. Every year I always feel like, oh, these seniors, when they're gone, it's going to be so hard. And I feel the same way about this group of seniors coming up. So we're just going to soak in every moment as, from training to qualifiers, to state. It's going to be a really, really great special year.
Now, Coach, I want to ask, you talked about returning some size to the boys program. Is it better to now? I know you're not picking players by how tall or how short they but I'm just curious. Do you see a difference in terms of speed? Because obviously you guys are doing time trials with swim. Do you see a difference with speed with your players that are a little bit in that taller, more lengthy, category, or when they're a little bit more shorter and stocky? I mean, is it just more in terms of the athleticism of the kid?
I think it really depends. I always tell it's funny because my newer swimmers will show up to a qualifier and they'll be like, man, do you see this kid who I'm competing against next to me? And I said, don't either overestimate or underestimate. I think a lot of it comes down to work ethic and training. I mean, I do think obviously if you watch some of the, national meets, you're going to see similar builds in most of the swimmers. But I really feel like it doesn't matter what your body looks like, what shape, size. It's one of the things I love about swim, especially as you continue on after your competitive years. It's one of those sports you can do forever, regardless of what size, shape, height your body is. I think, I think a lot of our team, they work hard to stay in good shape in the off season. Many of them will do other sports.
Right.
Track's a popular one. Baseball's another. I've got quite a few baseball players. That physical fitness, that endurance is huge. But as we've talked about before, you can be in great shape on land. You jump in the pool, it's a whole nother story. So it really, that's one of the things I love about the sport is physique wise, anybody can do it. It really is a matter of, are you willing to put in the work?
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like that's also applicable to other sports as well. I myself, not necessarily the shortest or tallest person in the world, but I have played basketball against guys who are taller than me, who have been terrible at basketball. And I've played against guys who are shorter than me who are very, very good. So you're right. I guess it doesn't necessarily matter. I was just curious if maybe that extra length helps with some speed or maybe just kind of not being as sort of lankier would help with more balance in the pool. I'm not really sure. So random question, but
I love it.
Yeah, thanks. Looking back at the team this season, any new faces, any new freshmen you're excited about this year as well?
Let me think about my freshmen right now. We definitely have some incoming freshmen. Camden Stockbridge is an incoming freshman. Let's see, Finnegan Harold is an incoming freshman. I'm trying to think on my girls' side. We've got some swimmers that have been doing competitive summer swim for quite a few summers that are coming up. Interestingly enough, I've got a huge group of 11, 12-year-old girls. So in a couple of years, if they all stay interested in swim, we're going to have and then a big group of 8 and unders. So, if they all end up staying in high school, the program's only going to get larger, which is exciting. So, and then a lot of great returners. So, you've got Luke Fangman, Jackson Moore, Hunter and Ethan Kogel. Let me think of Sean Hogard, Race Armstrong. I hope I'm not missing anybody. I'm going through the lanes in my head, but on the girls' side, Allie Kozlowski, Addie Parker. So we've got a good solid group of seniors coming back and I'm excited because they really are kind athletes, respectful athletes, and hardworking athletes. So to have that across the board as seniors, it just builds up the rest of the team. It really is. I've seen this legacy of just attitude and work ethic that has just been left behind by former swimmers, and it just carries on. And obviously, as a coach, that's exactly what you want to see for your team.
Well, Coach, you had talked about obviously having a couple kids who play multiple sports. You mentioned Hunter Cogill. We've seen Hunter out on the baseball field. Yep. How do you kind of benefit those other programs by getting these kids into shape early on?
Yeah, swim is a whole different thing, and I appreciate what they do in their land sports because it certainly translates into the pool for sure. But they really do have tremendous. I think what they get from swim is a lot of endurance. They get a lot of lung control. Some of those things. And I think with swim being an individual sport, there's a lot of self-motivation and dedication. And and that the competitiveness, no matter who is in the lane next to you, you're always competing against the clock. So it really is about refining your craft and getting better. And as these swimmers, some of these swimmers like Jackson Moore, I'll pick on, this, not pick on, but this guy, started as a freshman, had not done competitive swim. And I'm going to bet on the fact that he'll be going to state this year based on where he's at right now. And that's cool, in 4 years. And that came down to him putting in the work and refining the skills in every practice, working hard. And so, I think that translates into other sports because, you get into some of those team sports and it can sometimes be easy to go, oh, it's, if so-and-so is doing better, or if such and such came together better. It's like, no, you know what? Look at yourself. What are the things that you can do to contribute to your position or the event that you're doing? And that definitely comes from the sport of swim.
And I had a similar antidote with the Bradshaw Mountain track and field coach, Paul McLeland. We talked about as well that individual aspect of track and field where it's, very similar with swim. It's that individual aspect. And, I know I've talked to you kind of about the team aspect of the sport. I mean, obviously, we've kind of already covered that. But in reality, I mean, even you as a coach, the strategy, you can collaborate with other coaches during swim season because you're not going, hey, we're running this offense, we're running this defense. Now they have a counter. It really relies on the individual kid. And hey, if your best swimmer has a bad day, it is what it is. There's no one who can kind of come in. Like if you've got your best shooter on the basketball floor missing a bunch of shots, you can take him out and put someone in. But in swim, I mean, really, it is that individual aspect. But of course, Coach, there is always that team aspect as well. And we are speaking with Mingus Union High School swim coach Gretchen Wesbrock. The Marauders getting very close to getting back into the pool. Well, they've been in the pool, I should say, but getting ready for the start of the regular season, Coach. Let's talk a little bit about your Cottonwood Clippers. You talked about kind of that program. You mentioned having a good group of 8 and unders. You had a good group of 11 and 12-year-olds. I mean, how does that program really has been feeding right into Mingus Union? But can you talk about also just where the Cottonwood Clippers kind of, I don't know, branch out a little bit? I'm sure a couple kids go to Sedona, maybe they go to Camp Verde. How does the Cottonwood Clippers not only help the Marauder program, but also just kind of branch out outside of Mingus Union?
Yeah, it's certainly a Verde Valley team for sure. And we certainly have swimmers that will go to Camp Verde or go to Sedona. Many of them do come to Mingus, but, we've had an all-time high as far as numbers of swimmers, close to 200 swimmers on the Clippers this summer, ranging from 5 years old all the way up to 18 years old. And it's just a phenomenal, I look at the Clippers team as just a really great group of families, all very, very supportive, all really focused on young people improving and feeling confident about themselves. So it has been an excellent summer. And a lot of, I was having a conversation with a parent yesterday who was talking about their middle schooler who loves cross country, but also loves swim and, thinking about how are they going to decide? And those are the things where it's like, we just want to see kids stay active. We know that young people who are involved in athletics, any type of athletics, they're more likely, their grades are better in school. They're more likely to complete school. They just gain so much more self-confidence. It's, I've had many, many parents talk about how thankful they are that there's this period of the day that they know their kids aren't going to be on electronics or, and they're not going to be melting with our heat waves. So it's really a positive summer activity for families all around.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, it's great to just get kids, like you said, just active during the summer. I mean, I'm sure during the pandemic, there was a lot of that sitting around and even during the season, kind of waiting, okay, when do we get to go back to school? I'm just going to hang out here. And I know you guys did have still a pretty strong season in 2020, but you kind of wonder where you guys may have been if we didn't have the pandemic and maybe what would have happened, but still, nonetheless, still success across the board.
For sure.
Coach, speaking more so about the off season again, where was the focus this offseason? I mean, was it speed you guys wanted to get better at? Is it strength? I know you talked about the numbers are a lot better this year. Is it just getting more kids worked into the rotation? Where was the focus this offseason with the club team that is now translating into the high school team?
Sure. I think it was probably about all those things you mentioned, about certainly about speed, certainly about strength, certainly about stroke refinement. What we're doing with little kids versus what we're doing with our high school kids definitely looks different. Building that endurance before preseason is so important for that. I think when you mentioned the pandemic, I think one of the things that has been a real focus is getting young people re-engaged and really focusing on that work ethic piece, like the more you show up and not just show up as your body makes it there, but you engage your brain and you put some heart into it. The more you do that, the more you're going to get out of it. And so, I've certainly had some of those conversations this summer with young people who, they're just struggling to re-engage. There's, because of all the uncertainty that they faced. I mean, adults are somewhat struggling to re-engage. So, just really getting them focused on the fact that I was just talking to one of them today about how do you turn a hope into reality, or how do you turn a dream into reality? You don't just dream it and just keep dreaming it. You got to do something, you got to take a step. And so translating that into, you want to get better. Well, you need to show up, and you need to show up every day, and you need to get it on time, and you need to push yourself. If the send-offs I'm giving you aren't fast enough, push yourself. Tell me that. Let's do this. So, I would say there's a lot of focus, and it is such an individualized sport. One of the things I love about coaching is that I do get to build relationships with each swimmer. And for some of my swimmers, the fact that they make it in the door is a success. For others, I gotta push them way further to get to the threshold that they need to be at for self-improvement. So one of the things I love a lot about this sport and about coaching this sport.
Well, and that's the thing too, Coach. And I'm sure another reason why you got into administration as well, is just kind of seeing those kids who, they come at the start of the year and they're like, oh man, my grades are bad, or, I'm not hitting my times if they're playing a sport. And you kind of give them an opportunity to go, okay, hang on, take a second, take a breath, let's refocus, let's see where you're struggling, and let's get you right back on track. And, we see it every year with coaches like you who are just encouraging and just want to produce good players. It's great that your program is also successful, but of course that focus right there. And a lot of coaches have said it on the show, a lot of coaches, which is you guys are not only building great athletes, but you're building great people as well. Absolutely. Super important. Yeah, no, very important. So Coach, taking a look at the schedule, you guys are getting very close to the start of the first meet of the season. How are you feeling about the schedule this year? And how are you feeling about just the entire season going in? Sure. I'm still working on maybe one more meet so we can have 7. We can have up to 7 in our individual or dual tri-meet kind of schedule. And then the 4 qualifiers, which we're waiting on that schedule to come out. But, we'll have about 3 weeks of the season, and then we'll hit our first meet. I'm excited. We're going against some of the teams that we know well, like Sedona and Prescott and Bradshaw. But we've got a couple of new teams, Sandra Day O'Connor, a couple of Valley teams. We're going to do a meet against Mojave this year. That's what we're working on right now. And that's kind of fun because we do compete in our summer rec program. We do compete with Mojave. So it's fun for the kids to get to see familiar faces and race, swimmers. They're also in our division, which is also great. So, feeling really excited about the season, getting things in order with picking team captains and suits and some of those things that are really fun things to start doing, but excited about transitioning out of the rec into high school. Yeah, it's pretty interesting you guys are taking on Mojave because I don't necessarily have a connection to Mojave, but their head coach, his name is Ed Catalfamo, which is not the way that I pronounce my last name because I leave the L out of my last name, but I'm not related to him. I've never met him. I think I've tried to get him on the show before, but I remember the first time I started scheduling guests for the show, I was like, Mojave has a head coach whose last name is Catalfamo. There's only one other person in Arizona that I know for a fact has that last name, and that's my sister. And that is not her. She is not coach in Mojave. And she doesn't even go by Catalfamo anymore because she's married. So I saw the name. I was like, who is this guy? So maybe you have to do a little poking for me, Coach, and try to figure out if there's any kind of connection there. But he's a great friend of mine, and he's a great coach. So we have a lot of fun when we get our teams together. Yeah, no, I texted my dad. I was like, do you have a cousin named Ed? Do you know if Grandpa has a cousin named Ed? He's like, I don't know. We have no cousin named Ed. I don't know who that guy is. That you know of. Really? That I do know of. Yeah, apparently so. So I got a weird potential family connection in Mojave, but regardless though, Coach, like you said, you guys getting a couple other meets just locked down.
Yep.
I know you don't necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't necessarily have a JV program, but I'm curious if numbers have gotten to the point where maybe you guys might want to start considering having one. Do you feel that maybe the swim team might benefit with a JV program? Do you feel it might be a little unnecessary? Where are you with that?
I don't do any sort of cuts on the team, and I don't have any plans of doing anything like that moving forward. I love the numbers. I hope the numbers only get larger. I hope, one of my goals in recruitment over the next, I'm going to say 5 years. I feel pretty locked in for a while. I have a second grader. That's my youngest. So
we love it, Coach. More years with Wesbrock. Yes.
I got to see her through. She's very competitive and loves the sport. So, I want to do more outreach. Swimming can be a kind of an exclusive sport in the sense that, if you haven't taken swim lessons as a kid and had access to water, it can feel like it's too late in high school. And I'm saying, no, we have taught people how to swim and gotten them to a place where they can be competitive. So that's a goal that I have of mine. And there's some things that we probably need to put in place to really do that in a way that maximizes that opportunity. But, I've never thought of JV and varsity, even though at the end of the season, I do letter them that way. So we have varsity letters and we have JV letters. But for me, I think there's something very beautiful about having all abilities in the pool at the same time. I think it, it pushes my more advanced swimmers. It gives them the opportunity to mentor. It gives, more beginning swimmers the opportunity to see the strokes and see what those things look like, not just hear what a coach is saying or see me demonstrate. I don't know. I mean, I guess at some point if the numbers get so big, but we can really pack them in, we figured out. COVID taught us a few strategies for getting kids and having them spaced out in the pool. But just excited about this season. We've got Susanna Ventura, Coach Ventura's coming back. And then actually we've got a new coach coming on, Kyla San Giovanni, who's a former Marauder swimmer, and she's going to be coming on as our third coach this season. So really excited about the group we've got coming, and they've all coached with the Clippers, so they know swimmers know them. They know the swimmers. So that's a great start to the season.
She is Mingus Union High School swim coach Gretchen Wesbrock. Coach Wesbrock, more years of you at the helm of this program. I like to hear that. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck going forward on the season, Coach. And please keep in touch.
You bet. Thanks so much.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Snowflake High School football coach Kay Solomon right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Snowflake High School football coach Kay Solomon. Coach Solomon, welcome on to the program.
Thank you. Pleasure to join you.
Well, we are very, very happy to have you, Coach. Of course, it is not a mystery anymore. Snowflake High School has moved up to the 4A from the 3A. A team that is just coming off a 3A state title. Coach, obviously last season was fantastic for you guys. You come into a brand new conference, a brand new region. going into the 4A East Sky region. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. But Coach, how are you feeling about this transition from 3A to 4A?
Obviously a big move for us. And, we appealed the placement. We knew it probably wouldn't go anywhere based on the history of the past few years, the way that they've made decisions on those types of things. But at the same time, we were excited for the potential challenge of joining the 4A. And you say new challenges. One of our region foes is a very familiar foe, American Leadership Gilbert. They moved up to 4A as well, and then some of the other schools we haven't played. We used to play the Flagstaff schools fairly regularly. I haven't done that for quite a few years, but we're excited to have that on the horizon as a possibility now. And so we've been working for it. We actually started as coaches with the mindset last year that this is a possibility that it could happen. We knew with a deep playoff run last year, we would probably get moved up. And so we started looking at things we could do in our program to be better suited as a 4A level program. And I hopefully some of those things are starting to take effect and they'll pay off for us this year.
Well, we're already really interested to see how the season will shake out for Snowflake, of course. I mean, we cover a lot of 4A Grand Canyon region teams here, not necessarily just 4A Grand Canyon, but of course, you guys are going to get a chance to take on Bradshaw. You talk about getting a chance to obviously take on the Flagstaff schools in previous years. What are you expecting from the competition here coming into the 4A? I mean, specifically Bradshaw Mountain. What have you heard about Coach Bob and his Bears?
Well, Bradshaw Mountain specifically, I had younger brothers. I grew up in Snowflake, played here. My younger brothers did, and Bradshaw Mountain was a brand new high school at the 3A level back in the day, and so some of my younger brothers played. But it's been quite a few years since we've competed with them in football. I've been over to the school. It's a great school. I've been there for wrestling. We were in the same wrestling division, but honestly, I haven't looked that far down the road yet on our season schedule. I know they're there, and we're going to be looking at them and getting ready when that game gets a little bit closer. But we know that throughout the Prescott Valley, we have history with Mingus. Mingus was in the same conference with us for a few years, and always a tough program. We know Prescott's a tough program. Bradshaw Mountain. And I grew up playing Flagstaff and Coconino. We play them every year, even though they were in a higher conference. And so it's we know it's a tough region for football. It's interesting that we only got Bradshaw Mountain. We do actually have a preseason scrimmage with Coconino set up as well. That'll be our preseason scrimmage. So we'll get a look there as well. We know it's going to be tough competition, whether we're in the Grand Canyon region or our own region, the East Sky, all throughout the 4A. But we feel like we've come from a pretty good place. The 3A conference the past few years has been very competitive too. So we're excited, obviously a little bit nervous moving up to play with some bigger schools, bigger enrollment schools, but we feel like we're in a good place to do that right now.
One of those teams that also trickled up from the 3A to the 4A, if you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but Yuma Catholic, the team that you took on in the championship, also making the jump from 3A to 4A. So not only your solid program, of course, we talked about Snowflake, constantly being a powerhouse in the 3A. We got a chance to speak with Coach Bob Young of Bradshaw 2 weeks ago, Coach Lapsey last week. And they're all excited about the addition of Snowflake. I mean, you guys carry a strong reputation as a very, very good school in the 3A, along with Yuma Catholic, and now two fantastic schools jump up to the 4A. So, the competition in the 4A, Coach, is just getting even tighter.
I would agree with you. We've actually met Yuma Catholic in the final game the past 2 years. Coach Stallworth runs a great program down there, and his son playing quarterback is just amazing. By the end of this season, he should own every passing record there is to hold in Arizona. So yeah, Yuma Catholic moving in there, American Leadership Gilbert, and it's it changes the face of the 4A a little bit, but we're the ones moving up. We're the ones that are going to have to play up to that level of competition.
Let's talk a little bit about the 4A East Sky region, Coach. What have you heard about it, and who are you excited to take on?
Well, like I said, ALA Gilbert North, we played them twice 2 seasons ago. We didn't end up meeting up with them last year, but very similar type of student body makeup. A lot of ties between the two communities, even though one's in the East Valley and one's up, small town northeastern Arizona up here. But lots of ties between the two communities. So it's kind of becoming a little bit of an instant rivalry. So that one's definitely circled on the calendar. Honestly, all of our region games are Poston Butte, a finalist in the 4A last year, is in that region. Apache Junction, who brings a lot, and another 4A playoff team, and they bring a lot back. So, and then Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin got moved up to 4A3 after making it to the finals a few seasons ago, and they made it to the finals by beating us in the semifinal game. So we're familiar with a few of these region foes that we have in that East Valley area, and we know they're tough. We know we're going to have to play good football week in and week out and do our best to keep kids healthy so that we can be ready for hopefully a playoff run.
Yeah, for those who do follow our Mingus Marauder coverage on Verde Valley TV, we did get a chance to take on Benjamin Franklin last year, and they are a very, very solid program, a great field as well. Nice school, a relatively beautiful school. The Chargers are another solid program in the 4A, Coach. Yeah, you talk about Poston Butte, Apache Junction, ALA Gilbert, of course, and then now adding you guys and a few other schools, just making the 4A just even tighter and even tougher to come out of the 4A, come out of the playoffs, or even make the playoffs now. I mean, you guys coming in are instantly going to more than likely slot somebody down, which means, those teams that like to hover around the middle or the bottom are kind of sweating a little bit, seeing Snowflake slide in to the 4A as a potential top 10 team that's going to push everybody down. And then, of course, like I said, Yuma Catholic as well. But, Coach, let's talk about the team now. Let's move away from the regions. Let's move away from the games for a second. How's the offseason going?
We've had a good off season. We kind of maybe do a little different than some programs do. We, as a team, we don't necessarily start any organized team workouts until about spring break time. Mm-hmm. We have lots of multi-sport athletes. I think we had 8 of our varsity football players that were on our basketball team last year, and they got a late start after that. Going all the way to the finals in 3A last year, and so we have a lot of baseball players, a lot of track athletes, and we don't like to interfere with that. We want them doing the other sports, and so we kind of start organized workouts a little bit later on, in the end of March into April, May, but then we've definitely picked it up. In fact, we just wrapped up a team camp here in town. We don't go anywhere, but we bring the boys and we stay at one of our schools in the district here, and we spent the past few days there doing meetings and practices and team activities, and we're excited about this group of kids. They're hard workers. They're also hard players. They like to play around and goof around, but they get the work done first. So I'm impressed with them. They did a great job.
Obviously, last season you had a solid quarterback in Caden Cantrell, who was star senior quarterback for you last year. Obviously, helped lead the team to a state title. This season, you slot in now senior Easton Butler. How is Easton transitioning into this now quarterback one role, and how has he looked this offseason?
So he's actually competing. He's battling for the job right now, and he's a great young man. First of all, we're very excited for Easton, and no matter what happens, he's a guy who's going to be on the field someplace. We have a junior as well in Bryant, and the two of them are in a little bit of a quarterback competition right now. And it's a tight competition. I'll be honest with you. I don't know that we'll be able to make a decision until we get everybody in pads and get a look at the two of them in real football. But the good thing is our kids come in with a team mentality. And so when Brennan's throwing the ball and Easton's running routes, Brennan will throw him the ball. And the same thing if it's the other way around, Easton's throwing the ball and Brennan's out running routes, and they'll both contribute in one way or the other. But we like Easton. We like his upside. He's a great team leader, and so wherever he ends up on the field, he's gonna be valuable to us.
Coach, maybe you can have like a rock, paper, scissors competition or connect four, maybe a coin flip to decide that quarterback position.
They're so tight. And the good thing is, though, it also provides depth for our team. But they're so tight in this competition, it could come down to something like that.
Well, keep us posted to see who wins that one. But, Coach, you also graduated 2 great running backs last season. Another guy who's looking to take over that running back one spot is Jet McCray, who I believe comes in now as a junior. Again, similar question to Easton, and how's the running back position shaken out?
Yeah, so Jed will be a junior this year, and he got some significant time there at the running back spot last year. We have a senior that he got hurt halfway through the season. If you remember, we were going to play Coconino last year, and that game got canceled due to an illness. But we ended up picking up a game with Peoria. We traveled down and played in Peoria, and J.J. Lerma was another starting running back last year, and he got hurt during that game, and we never did get him back for the rest of the season. So JJ is coming on very strong. Jet's coming on very strong. So we'll have another strong 1-2 punch in the backfield. And then we've got a few other guys waiting in the wings too that are excited to get their shot and be probably making some noise during the season as well.
How about defensively, Coach? How are you guys looking on the defensive side of the ball?
Defensively is where we feel really good about things. We bring back 8 guys that we always hesitate to call them starters because you're switching guys in and out and you're moving guys around to kind of get better matchups week to week. But there's 8 guys that got a lot of playing time last year that are back. Up front on the defensive line, you have guys like Tony Munoz, who's been a 2-year starter. Big old, 6'4", 280-pound defensive tackle, defensive end. We move him around. Jordan Maurer started at defensive end last year. Matthew Brimhall, an inside linebacker. Braden Lewis, Garrett Flake, Lance Christensen. We've got these guys. Cooper Rapier was a cornerback. So we're bringing back a lot of guys that have some good experience. And we just saw that at camp. They're also smart football players, and they're guys that they know the system. So we did very little teaching of defense to those older guys. They spent most of the time teaching things to the younger guys at camp this year around.
Well, and of course, that's a huge benefit. I mean, when you get that experience on the roster and you're welcoming back so many returners, these guys can set the precedent and go, hey, this is how we do things here. You're stepping in as a freshman. Time to either learn and stick with us or go try a different sport potentially. But Coach, I want to ask any regarding the new faces, any kids, any new freshmen you're excited about, any players from JV that you're bringing up to varsity this year that you're excited about?
Well, I already mentioned Brennan. He was playing JV quarterback mostly last year, and we're excited about him. Carter Rabin will be a sophomore this year. He played only JV football as a freshman last year, and he's a solid player. We're looking for a spot to work him in. Then there's a number of others that we're looking at. Offensive line wise, we have some good returners. Bryce White, Slade Fish, they were starters last year, but then we've got some spots to fill in there as well. But we feel like we have good depth. We're excited. It's just a matter of finding, which kids are going to fit best where. And one of the best things we've had in our program the past few years is when a kid doesn't earn a starting spot, they jump in and they take scout team to heart. They'll work on a scout team through the week and do everything they can to make themselves a better player, but make our team better through their hard work too. And that's been part of our success these past couple of years has been through the efforts of our kids that are not necessarily the ones you see on the field on Friday night, but they're getting reps on Thursdays and Wednesdays, but then they're also on the practice field making a difference for us. So. Well,
and that's obviously what you want, Coach. I mean, you want those kids buying in. You want those guys going, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be the starting quarterback this year as a sophomore, but you know what? Next year as a junior, I may make a good turn. And of course, embracing your role as well. I played a lot of sports. There were times where I was the best player. There were times where I was the worst player. And it is about having that attitude. And I think it speaks volumes, Coach, with your program and programs that are similar to yours that have that consistency in terms of winning programs or winning seasons, winning state titles, going to the state title game. And it starts with those kids buying in. And really, I mean, it's a testament to your leadership as the coach. And then, the rest of your staff as well. JV, what can you say about your JV staff as well? Because a lot of those guys do some of that groundwork before they make it up to the varsity with you.
They do. We have a very tight coaching staff. We really kind of run the whole program through in the high school together. We're not scrimmaging freshman kids against our varsity kids, but every coach, in addition to the team that they're assigned to, they have a position assignment. My 2 JV coaches, Jason Whiting and Brad Flake, running the offense and the defense, but then they're also helping coach the linebackers and the quarterbacks and receivers. my freshman coaches, Will Flake and Taylor Flake. And, we're talking Snowflake here, so you get a lot of these Flake names thrown in there. But, they're coaching freshmen, but then they're also helping coach with running backs and DBs and wherever they can fit in and help coach on a position. So they know all the kids. We know all our kids top to bottom in the program and what resources we have that are available there, and the coaching staff and their willingness to, in some cases put ego aside and work together, even when they don't necessarily agree with the course of action or the plan or who's playing that position. They jump in and work, and that's been a huge part of the success of a couple of seasons as well.
Again, we were speaking with Snowflake High School football coach Case Solomon. The Snowflake just won a state title in 3A. They've moved now up to 4A. They're participating in the 4A East Sky region this year. Coach, one last question for you. You kick off your brand new 4A football team with a game against Northwest Christian in week 1 on September 1st. How are you feeling about that game, and what are you expecting?
Northwest Christian's been a strong program for many years. Coach Ines down there at Northwest Christian, he's been in the lead there for a long time, and we know that they're always a tough, polished, very good football team. So we know that we've got to get ready, be ready to travel down and play in the heat, which we've done that. It seems like we always seem to find these games down in the hot parts of the state during August and September, and
you don't get the glamorous cool weather of the White Mountains all the time, yeah. Coach.
I don't know why they wouldn't want to come up and play here instead, just every year, but quality program, and we're looking forward. It's been a few years since we've actually played them. This is another team we talk about. Northwest Christian got moved up a few years ago from 3A to 4A based on past success, and so now we're catching up to them, and we're looking forward to renewing a little bit of a rivalry there, and it'll be a great measure for right out of the gate. We'll play them. We'll play Sholo, one of our own little close region rivals here, 3A level, and then we get Glendale and Cactus. So if you're looking at our schedule, the first 4 games are going to tell us a lot about who these Snowflake Lobos are this year and what we're capable of.
The Snowflake Lobos take on Northwest Christian week 1 on September 1st, their first 4A game of the season. Coach, I want to thank you very much for coming on to the show and talking to us about your program. Best of luck going forward, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Happy to do it. Looking forward to following a little bit more closely those Prescott Valley area teams, Grand Canyon region, and we're happy to join the 4A. We hope we can hang.
Should be a lot of fun, Coach. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mayer High School football coach Thomas Oppelt right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by Mayer High School football coach Thomas Oppelt. Coach, welcome onto the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, we are very happy to have you, Coach. We haven't got a chance to talk 8-man football on the show. You and I were talking a little bit before the show started. I have a little experience with 8-man football in a previous job I had. But we have yet to talk about 8-man football here on the show. Coach, you are not new to the school, though you are new to this current football position. Coach Oppelt is also the principal at Mayer High School. But Coach, I wanted to talk a little bit about your coaching origins before we dive into 8-man football at Mayer. So how did you get started coaching?
Well, right out of college is I knew going in that I wanted to coach. So right out of college, I started on as an assistant coach on a program in Highland Park, Illinois, actually. And from there, I moved to a number of school districts in the state of Iowa, just trying to learn from experienced head coaches that I had a lot of respect for, and being an assistant for them. And then I want to say 1999, something like that, I landed my first head job and was able to take over a program in Waukon, Iowa.
What brought you over here to Arizona, Coach, specifically Mayor?
Humidity and snow.
Gotcha. That'll do it.
And Mayor, I came out to Mayor. I came to Arizona from Iowa when I retired and got out of football, and I worked for Mountain Institute, CTED, and the principal job at Mayor had opened, and I had known Dean Slaga through Mountain Institute and worked with him, and I thought it would be awesome to work with him again. So I applied for the Mayor job, and they were gracious enough to hire me.
Well, Coach, I know that you step in to this head coaching role for the first time this season. I mean, like you said, you obviously have some experience with coaching in general. Have you coached 8-man football before?
I have not ever coached 8-man football. I'm an 11-man veteran, but 8-man is all new to me. I'm finding the differences are actually quite striking when you are used to having mostly the defensive side is where I see it, where all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, where's my guy behind him? I don't have that anymore.
Right.
So, but that explains why 8-man games, the scores get to be quite sometimes out of control. Because if you beat one person, there's nobody behind them to help you out.
Oh yeah, and you know, like I said, I saw that a bunch of times when I was covering 8-man football back in my hometown, where there were scores that were 56-48, or right, you know, in the 60s or 70s. I think at one point one team got to the 80s. But you're right. I mean, 8-man football, a lot of differences. The field schematics are a little different. Like you said, it's a little bit of a narrower field, and in some cases, a shorter field. 100 yards is the usual field dimensions for an 11-man football team. But most of the time you see either 100 and they're only using about 80% of it, or it's just a straight up 80-yard field that's been already put together for schools that just have an 8-man program. So, Coach, what are some other differences that you've noticed with 8-man football compared to 11-man football that aren't as obvious?
The kids have to be a lot more versatile. When I coach 11-man football, we could tell kids, hey, this is where you're going to play, and you're going to rep just at that spot. But when you're only playing with 8-man, they have to be able to move from position to position.
Right.
You know, we have a young man that'll play some fullback for us, and he'll also go up and play guard for us.
Okay.
So, and we never would have had that in the 11-man programs that I was part of.
You know, Coach, let's move now from 8 and 11-man football to just the off season. How are you feeling coming into your first year? How did you feel the off season went for you guys?
Well, because of where we're located, because where we're located and the number of communities and the distances that kids are from the school, we don't have a lot of opportunity to get all of them together. So we kind of piecemeal it and we get them here and there where we can. But I feel pretty good about what we've accomplished in the off season, and they've all shown up for camp this week. So we've been able to put a lot in. And I know they're excited to be doing things a little bit different than they've done in the past. So we'll see how it works out.
Well, it should work out really well, Coach. You know, is there an area you'd like to see this team improve in? I know that last season Mayor struggled a little bit, but is there an area specifically that you've kind of keyed in with some of those guys that you've gotten a chance to work with that you'd like to see this team improve in?
And the biggest area that we've talked about is discipline, because the kids here, what I observed last year is just the principle is the kids aren't very disciplined. The coaches had a difficult time getting them where they needed to be, getting them to be on time. So we've spent a lot of time working on personal discipline, and you have to be committed to this. You need to be where you need to be. Everybody in this room's counting on you. And if you're not there, everybody else is hurt by that. So that's probably the biggest issue that I saw last year with it. You know, we had some really good coaches here, but our success hasn't been very good because our kids just aren't very disciplined.
Gotcha.
So we're really working hard on the discipline. The kids this year seem to be willing to become more disciplined. So, you know, it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting.
No, but it's good, Coach. You know, like you said, you coming in almost as the principal does sort of assign that sort of like, you know, not an overpowering presence, but somebody who does carry a lot of authoritarian or a lot of, gosh, I'm missing the word here, but somebody who carries a reputation. You know, you're the principal of the school. You're coming in to help out the football program. You said it yourself, discipline an issue from last season. You're coming in now to sort of correct that. Are there any ways that you're holding guys accountable? Do you feel that it's important to keep that sort of, you know, line of discipline while also, of course, keeping things fun?
Well, absolutely. You know, we've already told some kids not to come back. You know, guess what? You're just not disciplined enough for this, so don't come back.
Gotcha.
So our numbers aren't going to be huge, but they're not going to be terrible either. But that sent a pretty big message because some of them were upperclassmen, and it was just like, hey, you know what? We're not doing that anymore. So you don't need to be here.
Yeah.
And a couple of them came back, apologized, said they wanted in, and some of them just were like, okay, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
But it did set the tone, and we're doing a nice job.
No, that's good, Coach. And like you said, you're rebuilding that program, trying to get it back on track. Any freshmen you're excited about? Any new faces to the program you're excited about this year?
Probably the kids that we're the most excited about, I think, are our sophomore group. Okay. There's a lot of kids that are excited about playing a game. They're really, really, how do I want to say, motivated to be good at the game. And, you know, I just think that we're going to have some kids that are going to make huge jumps well, they've already made huge jumps in the weight room. Yeah. And I think they're going to see huge jumps in their athletic ability on the field. You know, if I were going to name a few, I would start with Eason Garcia. We could play him anywhere we want to play him. He's just a good athlete, and he's got great desire to be good as a football player. So he's just soaking up everything we're doing. William Walker, he'll probably end up playing quarterback for us. And we still run into that discipline thing a little bit with William right now. He seems to think that he knows as much as he needs to know, but he's coachable. So
does every 15-year-old, Coach.
Yeah, he's coachable. He just you gotta pound it into him, but he'll get there. Yeah. So I mean, we've got a number of sophomores that we're pretty excited to see play.
What about on the defensive side of the ball, Coach? You obviously talked about your quarterback position. I mean, what are you guys offering in terms of defense this year?
Well, that'll be really interesting because we're not very big at all. So up front, we're gonna be outmatched a lot up front, yeah. And that's on the offense or defensive side of the ball. But we're working real hard at getting our linebackers to be able to move play. And if we can get our kids up front to just be in the way of people trying to get to the linebackers, I think we're going to be okay.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about your supportive staff that you've got this season? You talked a little bit about some of the assistant coaches you had. I just wanted to ask how they've been helping you with this transition from your position. Well, I mean, you're still the principal, but you know, having this added responsibility of being the football coach. How has your staff helped out with it?
Right, they've really stepped up. Probably the biggest thing that has me frustrated being an administrator and coaching is I don't have the time to put in the weight room that I did when I was teaching. When I was teaching, if the weight room was open, I was in it. Right. And my job that I have now doesn't allow me that luxury of being able to just spend an hour and a half in the weight room with kids. So those guys have all stepped up and taken the weight room kind of off my plate, and I show up when I can show up. But that's big. You know, they're willing to spend the time to learn the system that I'm bringing in. because it's definitely different than the system that they've run before. And they've been extremely helpful in just picking up where I can't be, because my job now is far more demanding than the teaching role was in the off season.
Coach, I'm going to charge you for that 10 seconds of AC/DC that you just put over my I'm just kidding. No. But no, that's great, Coach. Like you said, having your staff step up, obviously you're dedicating time to being an administrator, as a principal, and also being a head coach. So it's great to see that your staff has really answered the call and has been able to help you out when you've needed help. I want to ask about the JV team. I know the JV program had a couple games last season. How is the JV program looking this season?
Yeah, right now I'm not sure we have enough kids to run a JV program. But hopefully, we got 2 more weeks before I'll have to make that call. Yeah. So hopefully we'll grab some more once the freshmen show up in the building. But like I said, they're coming from Black Canyon City. We get a lot of kids out of Prescott Valley.
Yep.
So it's a long distance for them to be committed to get out here, and all of them have parents that are working, so a lot of times they can't get here. So once school starts and we actually have them on campus, we'll see where that rolls. I'm hoping that it'll roll so that we can have a full JV schedule, because I would love for those kids to get the opportunity to play at a level that won't overwhelm them.
Again, we were speaking with Mayer High School football coach Thomas Oppelt. Mayer High School will get their first game of the season. There we go. Against the Baghdad Sultans to kick off the year. Coach, how you feeling about that game going in?
I'd like it a whole lot better to have a team with less tradition. Let me say that. Baghdad has a lot of tradition. They do a good job. They're coached up very well. They're physical. So we've got our work cut out for us. Yeah. But our kids seem to be looking forward to the new challenge.
How are you feeling about the region entering your first year as the head coach of the program?
Coming from the Midwest, where the longest road trip you take is an hour and 15 minutes. Some of our road trips seem to be forever to me, but we seem to be loaded, and we picked up the Freedom game with Baghdad, which didn't help, but you've got Mogollon and Williams. Now I'm forgetting the other big dog that's in the district, but it'll be a challenge. It's going to be a real good challenge, and hopefully our kids will step up to it.
Well, Coach, we're very excited about the start of the season. Again, Mayer's going to take on Baghdad to kick off the year in September. We're getting very, very close to the start of not only 11-man football, but 8-man football. Coach Oppelt, I want to thank you very much for stepping up for these kids and taking over this program when they needed somebody. Kudos to your staff, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck going forward. And please keep in touch with us.
All right, will do. Thank you.
Of course. That's going to do it for this episode of Off the Bench. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo, wishing you a great rest of your week. We will talk to you again next time.